Padres Hot Tub is brought to you by our Padres Hot Tub community, which has come together via Patreon, patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub. Spring training has arrived, opening day is around the corner, and we are seeing our community grow and grow with more people wanting to jump in, get away from the ridiculousness of other social media and join a not exactly as ridiculous or ridiculous in different ways media, including our Discord, which is a great place to get information about far more local things than just the status of the San Diego Padres 40-man roster, but we've got that covered for you as well. Fantasy coming around, and Raphie, I think one of the big keys, live group therapies, post-game shows as the season goes on, exclusive to our patrons.
Yes, if you are not in our Patreon circle, you did not see our emergency podcast, which we released last Thursday when the Padres signed Nick Pavetta to a 4-year, $55 million deal. We were up and doing a podcast within 3 hours of the leaking the announcement of the signing. And we had 60 some odd patrons that were in there with us. Few of them called in and talked to us about their thoughts on the show. If you want to join us, if you've been dying to talk to us and tell us what you think about the San Diego Padres or really anything, you can come and join us in the Discord, patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub.
Welcome to the Padres Hot Tub, everybody. Happy President's Day. Woo! Presidents. There's been many of them.
So
no
many.
cats. Monday, February 17th, that we know of. This is when we are recording. Great to be here. Craig Elston, Chris Reed, Raphie Cantor, all together in our various recording spots, ready to chat through the first day of full squad spring training. I mean, there's really nothing to say. They all got there and they hit baseballs and threw them into gloves and drove around in little carts and, stretched with athletic bands. They did all the things.
Afternoon.
Golfed in the afternoon. Yeah. They did all those things, guys. They did it. They did it. The millionaires got to camp on time. And they were able to go through the motions in a very pleasing fashion. It makes us feel good.
I will remind you that Jackson Merrill is making only $775,000 this year. So before we go,
that's not entirely true. He is eligible for the pre-arb bonus pool, in which he made over $1 million last year. So
money. Yeah,
okay,
you got it.
I stand corrected.
Yeah. Mostly millionaires. Gavin Sheets and millionaires. Yeah. They not like us. I mean, it's true. But also, we enjoy baseball, and we're very happy that they get paid well to do their job because baseball is stupid, but it's also fun. All right. Here's what's going on. We will reprise some, briefly at least, some aspects of Nick Pavetta signing, Kyle Hart being signed, what it means for the Padres. We'll do it in the context of looking at what are we going to get out of the 2025 Padres spring training? What are the position battles that matter? Who is on the board? Who are the people we haven't talked about that are potentially going to be seen in these spring training games? Do they have any chance at a camp, or are they just there to fill the time for Jesse and Tony?
I've got 50 minutes on Yuli Gurriel. Is this not the Yuli Gurriel emergency pod, Craig?
Oh, wow. Well, why don't we hold the 50 minutes for the end?
Fuck.
That way, it's there just so people can fast forward to get to it is what I mean. So that they know where it is. So that we have a good solid timestamp. I think that'd be a good plan. But yeah, we'll go through all of that kind of the interesting questions or not so interesting questions that the Padres could provide us between here and opening day. But first, Chris, let's shout out so many great new patrons who have joined us on Padres Hot Tub.
Yes, it has been an amazing week in the Discord. Just people jumping in seemingly every half hour. Lots of new faces, new names in there. In order to learn those names, you'll have to go in there. But here we have the names of the people who have actually signed up. We have Ian, we have Chris, Alex. Those are from today. Adam, Jason, Friar Bob, Matthew, Richard, John, Ryan, Jason, Friar Smeagol. Oh, started the filthy, filthy, flaming started. Mark, Samuel, Alec, Kyle, Danny, Angel, Lazy, Jay-Z. Not like a lazy ZJ. That's different. Journey, Baseball Guy 32, Timothy, Justin, Joshua, Jim, Rick, Dave, Abraham, Thomas, Lucia. Thank you so much, Lucia.
I had no idea you had that Smeagol impression just in your bag the entire time, and we haven't been whipping it out on a consistent basis.
I mean,
wow, never
exactly
say that again.
Like him.
But yeah,
I mean, I look exactly like him and move exactly like him. I don't know why you wouldn't just assume I'd also sound like him.
That's incredible. Well, thank you, everyone. Patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub. If you want to join the party continues to grow. Okay. Nick Pavetta was made official Monday morning. 4-year, 55. It's a 2-year, $23 million contract that is built so that the Padres have cash flow help this year. $3 million signing bonus, $1 million salary. Salary jumps up to 19.5 next year, winds up being a 2-year, $23 million deal that he can opt out of at the end of 2 years. Or if he wants to take a pay cut of $5 million going into 2027 with a new CBA, he can do that. I don't think anything should be planned beyond 2026 for anyone. So, guys, I was super hyped when this came out. I have not had any reason to lessen my hype status since. And I think my biggest single takeaway beyond whether Nick Pavetta is great, good, or average for the Padres this year is that the Padres ownership committed to spend over the competitive balance tax, that we are very, very close to the second threshold, so close that it would be very difficult to get below it. And that it truly appears, and all the reporting has backed it up over the last 72 hours now, that seems like there was a change. Seems like there was a change in tone in old Padre Town, where the calls that were being made in regard to Dylan Cease or Michael King or someone else turned into, nope, we're going to hang on to those guys. And we're going to sign Nick Pavetta. And I continue to draw this to a direct line to John Seidler's going to be the control person. It's going to be decided in about 3 weeks. There's been an ownership kerfuffle. There's been a dispute. There's been a whole lot of talk about what this ownership won't do. And I think that they wanted to make a statement without making a public statement that they're willing to do something. And that thing is spend money, get over the CBT, do something we literally all of us asked them to do, and then all said that they wouldn't do, entering the winter, which is get over that CBT.
Yeah, I think a couple things can be true at the same time. I think that both this is an attempt by ownership to make an impression with the fan base to try and get on their good side, because again, at the end of the day, all Padres fans want are a winning team that they can be proud of, that's competitive in a division that's getting increasingly difficult as the days go on. And I think another thing that's true is the Padres went to market with Dylan Cease and Michael King and put very high price tags on them, and no one bit at the high price tag. No one was in a position that was desperate enough that they were willing to let go of what AJ Preller was asking for. And so as a result, the Padres signed Jason Hayward, they signed Connor Joe, And I think they signed Nick Pavetta, and then also we'll get to Kyle Hart in a little bit, but they made another move as well. I think that another thing became clear with the Nick Pavetta signing, which is that we certainly won't be seeing Dylan Cease next year in a Padres uniform. And if I had to wager, we probably will not be seeing Michael King next year in a Padres uniform either. I think that the team is committed to staying under the second threshold, which they probably should, given the financial, ramifications of everything. And with Nick Pavetta now going to be making the money that Dylan Cease is making this year, next year, then stay with me, who's on first, that I just don't see a world in which they're going to be able to afford to keep any of those guys around. And so ideally the Padres will be, like we said, they're going to be losing a draft pick in this year's draft because they signed to Nick Pavetta, who was extended the qualifying offer. They will be gaining 2 competitive balance round A draft picks. Is that what they are? Yeah. For for extending qualifying offers and then getting them declined from Michael King and Dylan Cease, Craig.
They could if they stay on the team. I am not convinced the reporting is all that accurate because it has not been in the past. Just the day of the Pavetta signing, there was reporting that, the Padres were done and, nobody else is coming. And then Pavetta got signed. I really like the move for 2026. There was nothing of established major league starters outside of Joe Musgrove and Yu Darvish on the books for 2026. So that is a great thing about that signing. I think if they were using this signing as good PR, Nick Pavetta would not have been required to take a bath on it. Nick Pavetta took a bath on this deal. He declined that $21 million qualifying offer and wound up getting a 2-year deal worth $23 million. So he netted $2 million with that decision. It doesn't seem all that good. And they must have been, this deal must have been in the works for a long time for this to be what he settled on. So I really want John Seidler and the administration of the Padres to have this commitment be what they're going to do the next 4 years, the $200 million number. I like it. That's fantastic for our market. That's giving the Padres fans who fill the stadium every single home game. That's giving back to them. That's like a reciprocal deal that is adequate and fair. So I really hope that's the case. I've just been hurt before Craig and Rafe. I've been hurt, and I can't let down those defenses quite yet until we're in the season. I think it'd be a great strategy for them to keep Dylan Cease and Michael King the whole year and roll those dice. And if things collapse in July, then you can still trade them. But I'm just not convinced that they're going to be on the team when the season starts. I still think there's going to be movement.
You and Harold Reynolds over here.
No! I mean, yeah, Nando has to move. Manny definitely could. Xander Bogaerts is a Red Sox.
Obviously. I don't know. I think they're bringing this team to market, and they're going to see what happens. And
I hope so.
I think maybe the difference could be, well, I don't even want to say the difference. When the Padres were 50-49 last year, I think there was an open question as to what direction they were going to go. Then they went 7-2 on a road trip. They came home and then they made the deals, and they made the moves to improve the club. They don't have quite the level of flexibility that they had in 2024. Nonetheless, they've got a better team because the moves they made in 2024 are still there. Cease is still there. Arise is still there. King is still there. Those trades netted 2 years of control. The second year is valuable. And all of those players are available to San Diego to begin the year, not to be acquired at some point during the course of the year. Adam is here for the entire year and for multiple years of control. So I think they are and we could be wrong, but again, this is something we talked about on the emergency show. I think now AJ is in his spot, his happy spot, which is if you want to overpay, if you want to take the number I've set and meet it and give me something I'm going to win the deal, then okay, we'll make a deal because I'm going to win it. But the key is, and I've seen this discussed in our Discord, I just don't think it can be said enough. AJ Preller every year has tried to win since 2020.
Yes.
He has tried to win every single year. He makes moves to try to win. Every year he's made new creative moves when some new challenge has been put in front of him, whether it is a payroll challenge or whether it is a departing player challenge or whether it is a player you must trade because they're going to leave. He has found the way to work around that without having the pause year in the last 5 years where you'd say, oh, this year we're not doing it. And hey, there's some folks who have been advocating that in our Discord every year. This should be our pause year, our punt year, our stop and rebuild year. But that's not what AJ does. He tries to win every year. So it may not have the same shape every year, but I do love that about the GM he has proven to be.
I would even go a year further. Like, I know the rotation was dog shit, but in 2019, they promoted Fernando Tatis Jr. because they wanted to put the best player on the field. They didn't play the ARB2, the Super 2 game of keeping a guy down until his service time warranted it. I really like that about AJ Preller and what the Padres have done.
I just want to say before we move on, there's a website called fangraphs.com. In our private section, I've been on Discord, and in our patron-only podcast, I've talked about them quite a bit. And when Nick Pavetta and Kyle Hart were signed to the Padres, Jay Raphie, who I love, wrote an article. It was a punny headline that I don't have right in front of me. I'm sorry, but it basically was something along the lines of like, Pavetta and Hart to Padres, but the rumors won't cease, ha 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 ha. And basically the article went and implied that, that this now primes a Dylan Cease trade. And in the comments, you will find a comment from what I thought was an anonymous or alias comment, but it does say just Raphie Cantor in the comments of this Fangraphs article. But basically, where I go in and I explain to Jay Jaffe why that actually will not be happening because the fate was sealed with the signings of Jason Hayward and Connor Joe. And I hang on to that. I stand by that 4 or 5 days later, where basically, like, if the Padres were going to trade Dylan Cease for anyone, it was going to be an everyday left fielder. When they signed those two guys, it sealed the fate of the trade because all you would be doing now in terms of a trade that makes sense is trading for a younger but essentially worse pitcher. And the only player that you could really justify that, like someone like I believe his name is Brandon Sproat, from New York Mets. Yeah, who was a University of Florida product, who's basically a ready-baked guy who was drafted in 2023 and spent last year in AAA and was great. But he's the type of guy who the Mets would never give up for 1 year of Dylan Cease. He's a future number 2, number 3 starter who has 6 years of team control ahead of him. And that's basically the only type of person that you could justify trading Dylan Cease from on the Padres side. And the Mets are never going to give him up. And so if, with no left field position to be played, I just don't see how a trade could possibly happen at this point, guys.
Raphie, Frankie Montas isn't pitching. He's not pitching this year. Not this year. They said he's out for a considerable amount of time and isn't pitching.
6 to 8 weeks with a high-grade lat strain.
Yeah, those can get worse. But no, you're right. Like, that's a very valid point, man. Like, the left field hole is what they needed filled on the roster, and they did fill it, like, a lot. You can go to DH and catcher and first base, but they kind of have guys that can play those positions. And you're not going to move 180 innings of a number 1 bona fide starting pitcher to slightly upgrade at catcher, DH, or first base. So, like, I think that's a valid point, and changes it gives me a little bit more hope your lovely anonymous comment. What username were you trying to go with? Were you going to go with like Goff Bob?
Oh, I was thinking maybe it was like my Discord name, like Weighted Raphie Cantor Plus or something like that, or it just isn't that anonymous, but like it's at least something. It's just
Still
it just
literally
says
has your
Raphie
name
Cantor.
in it.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
not to brag, guys, but it is the top voted comment on the article.
Wow.
Which
There's
is titled
our guy.
Padres bolster rotation by signing Pavetta and Hart, but rumors won't cease.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah.
Well, maybe there's a trade later, and then we'll do an emergency show. But otherwise, let's move forward. I think the most exciting thing that come beyond what I said earlier, which you guys have expressed varying levels of excitement about, the other exciting thing is now you have Cease, King. Keep your hands off him, Chris. You and Harold can just go think about other things.
Motherfucker.
Then
Don't call me. I'll get mad. I'll start cussing.
Then
Don't make me cuss, Craig.
Yeah, not YOU, but then you, Darvish, then Nick Pavetta. That's 4 guys. And now you have Kyle Hart, Matt Waldron, Randy Vasquez, Johnny Brito, Stephen Kolek, all trying to get one rotation spot. I think Waldron will probably have slightly the inside edge unless Kyle Hart throws 17 shutout innings or really pitches well in spring, in which case he will take the inside edge. But the point is, guys, that's 4/5 of El Paso's rotation right there. And, while I don't think any of us are going to love it if Stephen Kolek is starting games next to Johnny Brito for the Padres at some point in July, nonetheless, that's not what they even had last year in terms of depth, and it's pretty good to see.
It's excellent to see. Like, if you're AJ looking at that list, you feel good. Like, you don't need to keep shopping. Moreover, I don't think you want Stephen Kolek taking any one of his first dozen starts in Major League Baseball. I think you want that guy to get the whole process, his whole routine of approaching game day, getting ready for it, going to the park when you're the starting pitcher, getting on the game in the first inning. I think there's a lot to that he's going to have to adjust to. So you don't want to see him. Johnny Brito, Randy Vasquez, they know the deal, but it would be great if Johnny Brito specifically had his role defined. And if that's starter, AAA is a great spot for him. He's got the optionality, and same with Vasquez. The Hart versus Waldron battle is interesting because we know we've talked about Waldron's knuckleball at AAA. Like, he's not developing it any further when he's at El Paso. It's not helping him learn how to be a major league pitcher, throwing his knuckleball in El Paso. But at the same time, if he ain't got it and it ain't there, his second half was really rough and you want some insurance. Kyle Hart's, a big unknown for me. I vaguely remember him getting blown up when he was a Red Sox, but other than that, I haven't done a deep dive into his KBO metrics or anything like that. He just seems like a guy with a good attitude who I'm willing to root for because we've kind of seen this story with Nick Martinez and Robert Suarez, guys getting cast off to the Asian leagues and then coming back, and the Padres and Ruben Niebla having something for them and being able to help them find their niche as a major league player. So, it feels good to have options, right? And I know AJ Preller's got to feel solid about it.
I think there's one thing about Stephen Kolek that's worth noting is that we can do something with Stephen Kolek this year that we could not do last year, which is send him to El Paso because he was a Rule 5 pick and he had to stay with the 26-man roster until he magically had a pinky sprain or something on August 2nd after the trade deadline. He had to remain with the Padres Major League roster. Otherwise, he would have been sent back to Seattle as per the Rule 5 rules. Which is the same case of current Rule 5 pick Juan Nunez, who I imagine we'll talk about later in the show. And so that, Stephen Kolek is a, quad A pitcher as of right now. I hope for the best. I hope that he grows. And so, I think it is a really, really good thing for Stephen Kolek that he can go and spend time in the minor leagues and get things sorted out, because he's going to be able to try shit and do things that he just simply would not have the wiggle room to do on the major league roster. So I welcome Stephen Kolek starting games in El Paso, because it means that he is trying to improve and, bring some value that, as we saw out of the bullpen last year, I just don't know that Stephen Kolek is going to be able to carry, especially in a bullpen that appears to be as crowded as this one, Craig.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we're going to get to here, and we'll start transitioning into some of the position battles we'll be looking at. But one last piece of roster news today, the Padres announced that. What's that? Oh, you were just reacting to it.
Just say it out loud. I was bracing myself.
Oh, I mean, I'm not overly concerned that Yuli Gurriel has signed a combo deal for the Padres. He's 40. He's terrible. AJ's not an idiot. Yuli Gurriel is going to. How is he going to make the team?
Great question. You talked about this when the team had Rougned Odor on their roster in spring training, and you said it was a mistake to even invite him into the house because he might prove himself or demonstrate utility during spring training, and then you have to put him on the roster, and then you have to play him. So I am terrified Yuli Gurriel is going to come into spring training using his bat-to-ball skills in the thin Arizona air, hit 12 jacks, lead all of the friggin' Arizona, the Cactus League in hitting, and then AJ's going to go, well, I got him. Then he's going to come to San Diego and be a pumpkin, because that's what he is. He's a 40-year-old pumpkin.
I don't think he's going to make the team.
He's not going to make the team.
He better not. But why invite him in the house?
Yeah.
I'm more concerned about him taking Mike Brasso's spot, because I need to bid on that Brasso Star Wars jersey for the Chihuahuas. And if he's not the starting first baseman, he's not going to have a jersey.
That's true.
When you guys said emergency Yuli Gurriel podcast, I was like, oh yeah, it is an emergency, as in what the hell is going on? And we demand some answers. No, I tend to not really read into this too much. This is someone who I do not believe is going to make the team. I share in some of Chris's frustrations in that, are there going to be at bats that are going to be stolen from Terso or Arnelas or something that are going to be going to Yuli Gurriel? Like, what do we really need to know about Yuli Gurriel that we don't already know? I mean, I do think we would be remiss if we did not note that Yuli Gurriel made a racist gesture towards Yu Darvish in the 2017 World Series. And I know that was 8 years ago, and I don't know if they've buried the hatchet at any point. I think that there were some sort of pleasantries exchanged through the media. Seems like a weird thing to invite into your clubhouse. Yeah, Chris?
Maybe this is all Yu's idea, and he just wants to put the knife in his chest like that German soldier in Saving Private Ryan. Like, he knows he's on the way out, and he wants to be the one to tell him. Like, maybe that's what hey, listen, you bring him in, I'll even pay you $140,000, AJ. I just want to crush this man, this rival from old times. I just want to crush him, please. That is my best case scenario right there.
Oh, I was wondering, that got me thinking maybe Yu Darvish is trying to bring Yuli Gurriel with him to the final tribal council as kind of the dope.
As a goat.
Zero
vote finalist.
Exactly. Someone who he can boot off of the team at the very last moment before the team ships back to San Diego. Really, that from a strategic standpoint does make sense. That is the only strategic value I see to this deal. Otherwise, I really just don't get it, you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's going to make the team. I think it's one of these waste of time things that sometimes happens. We're going to hit a couple of the other versions of what I think are the same thing here as we now move into position battles. So there aren't that many. I think most of them have been defined, but there's still a little bit of wiggle room. Here's where I'd actually like to start. Mike Schilt said at the beginning of spring training camp that he looks at his 4 infielders as quote unquote everyday guys, meaning Manny Machado, Xander Bogaerts, Jake Cronenworth, Luis Arraez. Not too keen on that particular strategic trend. I think obviously Manny Machado and Xander Bogaerts are everyday players. I think Luis Arraez and Jake Cronenworth should start against every right-handed pitcher, and that's clearly a large swath of games. And I think Luis Arraez probably starts every day, even though he's a reduced version of himself, against lefties. Jake Cronenworth is not a very good player against left-handed pitching, and the fact that the Padres start with that, now listen, their actual actions will dictate what they do, but you've got an Eggy Rosario right there. I keep dreaming of a Jose Iglesias that I don't know will be, turned into reality, but if you're going to start Cronenworth every day, it really limits your flexibility to be a better offense.
I trust Mike Schilt a lot, but this was kind of I don't want to say alarming, because he could change his mind in the 3rd week of spring. This could be his posturing to puff up his guy who's making $11 million and is a vet. Like, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt in it. I'm also going to say an objective fact that Jake Cronenworth has an OPS on his career that's 100+ points less than against left-handed hitters than it is right-handed hitters. He's an obvious platoon guy, and you may like his leadership and you may like his makeup, and that's why you're planting this little flag not too deep in the turf, because the Padres got some guys who can really platoon quite well on that side of the infield, in different positions in Eggy, and I just hope that this is posturing, this is messaging, this is communications, this is PR, because it seems pretty obvious that Jake isn't made to face left-handed pitchers at the major league level.
I do think we're going to see a little bit of PR smoke and mirrors happening, because once we get in season, I think that this team is built to be managed very tightly and to have levers pulled very frequently in game to get them playing at their optimal level. This is a slight tangent, but I was on Reddit this week and there was a thread about asking National League fans if they liked the designated hitter or if they missed watching pitchers hit. And I was shocked at the amount of people who said that they missed watching pitchers hit. But it did bring up one thing that I do miss, which is the double switch. When someone pulled off a nicely executed double switch, it got me going. It really was just something. And we're not going to have that this year, obviously, but I would like to see Mike Schilt making lots of mid-game switches and decisions and subbing, Connor Joe in for Jason Hayward when a lefty comes into the game. But, potentially pulling a lever again and putting, a different guy out there if it needs to be, or vice versa, putting Hayward in there.
Tyler Wade. That's the next guy.
Tyler Wade, or vice versa. In a game where you have Connor Joe starting and you put in Jason Hayward and, a lefty's coming in. Well, guess what? We've got Eggy Rosario that we're going to throw out into left field. And then look at you. You're just, it's like the guy, it's not the OxyClean guy, but the guy who sticks the sticky stuff onto the leak to keep it from
Mr.
Springing.
Clean. Yes, Mr. Clean.
Yes.
No,
I'm just nodding along. I'm already lost in my metaphor.
Smart.
This team is going to be springing leaks on a game by game basis depending on who is pitching out of the bullpen for the opposing team, and it's incumbent on Mike Schilt to patch those leaks as soon as they come up. And I think the team is absolutely built that way.
My only worry is that he showed a little bit of reticence to adjust last season in the playoffs in one particular way that I won't repeat. Before, I just wanted to put that's my only why I'm a little worried.
And he's the skipper and he has that, right. But every time he starts Jake Cronenworth hitting 5th against a lefty or even hitting 6th against a lefty, he's hurting his team if he's got a better option on the bench. And Eggy Rosario, so far in his career, has shown to be that. So as we get into a couple of these, I'm going to do it in the form of a question. So left field, we know, is the Hey Joe platoon. DH right now is nothing. Luis Rise is the first baseman. Are the Padres really going to give Gavin Sheets a starting DH job? Does Terso Arnelas even have a chance, or should this dude request a trade or a release right now? Because if he can't beat out Gavin Sheets, he can't be a Padre. Like it's not going to work out for him in the long term. And I just kind of wonder, specific to Arnelas and Eggy, who's out of options, like, are these guys going to actually get a chance, or is this kind of a bullshit, not really a chance, where then Gavin Sheets wins a job and we wind up, I don't know, cutting Eggy or trading him or something along the way?
I mean, look, I completely agree with you that if Terso Arnelas cannot beat out Gavin Sheets for a job, then he doesn't really have a role within the org. I mean, the organization went out and signed Jason Hayward and Connor Joe for veteran minimum deals, basically, because they don't believe in Terso Arnelas as a left fielder. They wouldn't have done that and paid those guys those extra $2 million that they really could have used if they thought that he was the future in left field. I think that the team's belief in Terso Arnelas is sort of by default. He's gone through the system. He's kind of shown everything that you can show in every level of the minor leagues. He's been in the organization since, what is it, Chris, 2016?
Yeah, I think the year after the big class of 2015.
Yeah. So there's a certain point where, you're 9 years on from when he's signed with the org. And shockingly, I think he's only like 24 or 25 years old at this point. So like, kind of like, what else are you going to do? And so I'm really Gavin Sheets curious. I'm sorry to admit, just because he was such a heralded prospect, and he was playing in such a bleak environment in Chicago the last couple of seasons. And I do wonder if it's just there's a possibility of a sort of change of scenery thing happening. I'm mostly pretty skeptical. But unfortunately for the Padres, and fortunately for Gavin Sheets, he's probably the profile of hitter who this team needs the most and has no better option, which is a lefty thumper, a low average slugger who's going to be a threat in the middle to bottom part of the order, who is going to change potentially how an opposing manager trots out their bullpen. And so, make of that what you will, but it does not seem like that the Padres are going to miraculously sign Anthony Rizzo or Rowdy Tellez or another guy who kind of fits that profile at the bargain store. So unfortunately, in some ways, I think Gavin Sheets has a spot to lose on this roster because there's no one else who's fitting his profile, guys.
That's really well put, Raphie. I don't have a lot to add. Gavin Sheets, one thing that when I was digging into him, he flattened the ball out a little bit last year. He got better line drive rates than he ever had in his entire career. And whether that's it wasn't the biggest sample in the world, but whether that's a focused and an approach based result or just kind of happenstance is kind of big into whether I think he'll have success this year. I have a lot of Terso Arnelas baseball cards, guys. I really want him to do well. Like, I've been following him for a while. I want him to do very well. But you said it, dude. This is the rubber meeting the road for the guy. He's done well. He had a great year in El Paso last year. And he was at least the minor league hitter of the year. And like AJ has traded so many of his system's players of the year the past 3 years. It's almost like the Frito kiss in a way. And he also is out of like minor league time. Like the Padres have to sign him to a new contract every year. They don't control him anymore. He'll be a minor league free agent at the end of this year. So I really want him to do well. He has succeeded. I'm rooting for him to come in and win the job out of camp, despite Sheets' kind of allure and that prospect pedigree that he has. And Terso fits the same kind of mold because he's added thump the past couple years. It's kind of a new thing. He had been a contact guy, but he's hit the ball hard lately. So I'm going to go ahead and put myself in Team Terso for that particular battle. But you said it all really well, Rafe.
I don't have to add anything else other than I did note and could not let escape that you called Fredo the Corleone that is killed in Godfather 2.
I like corn chips, bro.
Frito.
I like corn chips.
And said it was the Frito kiss, which made me think of somebody with a very salty, Frito kiss, which is just not the same as the Fredo kiss, which was a kiss of death. A Frito kiss is more of a salty thing.
It's also a kiss of death.
Oily, a little oily,
a
little salty, but not the same. Not the same. Okay. There's also a fringe group of other players that are fighting for maybe the last roster spot on the team. And they could also theoretically jump into the outfield or jump into DH. This is my pile of weirdos, right? You've got Brandon Lockridge, who came over last year and proved he could run. Like, he's got reason to be the 26th guy on the team. You've got Jonathan Perlaza, who's like built like a brick shithouse and maybe could hit the ball super far. Maybe, I don't know. There's someone named Forrest Wall. I don't even know who he is. There's Oscar Gonzalez. He's the dude who came up to SpongeBob SquarePants for the Guardians and hit a big playoff homer. And I think that's the last hit he got in the big leagues with like 5,000 chances since. But nonetheless, there's these guys. They're going to be showing up in the 7th inning of these games starting on Friday. And I'm wondering if anyone actually takes a look at the last spot on the roster. I'll tell you right now, I'd rather have Lockridge or Perlaza or almost any of these guys than like keeping a third catcher, and the third catcher's Martin Maldonado or Sullivan.
Nice thing about Lockridge is he has options. Like, he can be the guy that comes up and, break the glass. Whereas some of these vets like Oscar Gonzalez won't, or Perlaza won't. All those guys aren't guys you can keep in your pocket. You're gonna have to let them go if they suck it up.
Yeah, I do question the ability for, in a pinch, in an emergency situation, Jason Hayward to play center field. I think if you don't believe in that, then Brandon Lockridge does somewhat need to stick around to be able to play center field in some sort of emergency situation. Brandon Lockridge being around does lessen the value of Tyler Wade, whatever value there is in having Tyler Wade, because Brandon Lockridge is the emergency pinch runner. He has the 80 grade speed, the 80 grade stealing ability. So you would put him in over Tyler Wade, which is how Tyler Wade got much of his playing time last year. Guys, I pay a lot of attention to the Padres. I take a lot of pride in my baseball knowledge. When you said there was someone in spring training camp named Forrest Wall, I thought you were pulling a fast one on me. I've never heard of this man in my life before, only to find out that he's been in the Rockies organization since 2014.
Oh my God.
I
guess you'd say he hit a wall in the organization. He couldn't get anywhere.
I walked right into that.
There's also a forest in the back of the outfield, but I digress. Never mind.
Yeah, unfortunately for him, I think we're going to be losing the forest for the trees of this. We can do this all night. I hope there's still 6 people listening to this show.
You're my favorite 6. You always were.
Yeah. I'm so into Jonathan Perlaza just because like he seems like he's got the storyline of like, kind of crashing out of the Cubs system, going overseas, smacking the crap out of the ball. You look at this guy as I think as our one of our patrons, Rich, said, never skipped an arm day in his life. If you look at the videos that Sammy Levitt posted about him, he's absolutely massive. And again, it's like I guess I'm altering what I said 5-10 minutes ago. We needed a lefty thumper, and Jonathan Peralta, I keep saying Perlaza, could potentially fit that mold. Unfortunately for him, some of the scouting reports on him say, quote, he has trouble with spin, which I'm told they do have in the major leagues. I don't know if they didn't have it in Korea, but they certainly have it in the major leagues. So we'll see if he has a strikeout rate underneath 40%. But if he does, he has an outside chance to make this team.
Like he can just be our offensive Jeremiah Estrada this year that we swoop up from the Cubs and is suddenly great and extremely valuable and beloved.
I would love that. I'd love nothing
I don't
more.
think Jonathan Perlaza is any less of a viable Jonathan Perlaza is any less of a viable DH than Gavin Sheets.
Yeah,
I have no confidence in Gavin Sheets. I think he's shown you what he is. He is a below average, way below average major league DH who will 10 times a year hit a home run. If you give him enough at bats, 10 hanging curves will be thrown to him that he will hit into the night. And I bet Jonathan Perlaza would also hit 10 hanging curves into the night if you gave him 400 at bats, like someone will give Gavin Sheets. And it almost is like the Family Guy color-coded chart, like, which guy do I trust to be on the team? Oh, Gavin Sheets seems okay. I don't know. I personally, I'd be completely fine with Perlaza getting that look. And Eddie Rosario has to make the team, and I hope they give him the at-bats that he needs to be useful, because now Rosario needs to play against left-handers, because Connor Joe also needs to play against left-handers. And if we think that Arise and Cronenworth aren't good against left-handers, who's going to take their place? Like, we need some guys, and these are two guys that can do the job. So they need to be played properly in order to maximize their value.
Hear, hear.
Which, by the way, also not for nothing, Mike Schultz said Eggy Rosario is going to be taking balls in left field. He actually said the word primarily in left field. I don't know if that's true or not, but again, I think he should take some balls at second base too. And Sammy Levitt has told me, because we talked about it on Friday, that he is taking ground balls at second base and he's taking ground balls at third base. So, those are just words. Okay. Moving along. We talked starting pitcher. I mean, do we all think Waldron's got the inside track, but it's not a heavy track?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Like, I think the team wants him to be the guy.
Yeah, I do think that this team believes in Kyle Hart. That's why they brought him in. I think frankly, it depends on what the team sees in terms of velocity in Matt Waldron's knuckleballs. I think if he's throwing those, shout out to John Percoda for positive replacement, who was all over this months ago before Matt Waldron gave a quote in camp basically saying that he's going to be trying to throw more hard knuckleballs. I think I'd have to go back and watch, but I think 78 or 79 miles an hour was the magic number, where above that, if he was throwing knuckleballs above that, guys were missing it like crazy. And if he was throwing knuckleballs slower than that, it was batting practice. So, we'll see the pitch mixes that Matt Waldron brings in. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I think it's a cool and good thing for the team to have a knuckleballer. I think just having a guy who can mix things up, be a little bit different, potentially be an opener. I'm never going to let that thing die. I think that can be interesting for the Padres. And as the team is going to need innings down the stretch, certainly a guy like Matt Waldron, who theoretically is not putting as much torque on his elbow with every pitch that he throws, is going to be quite valuable coming in. I do think that of the Waldron, Kyle Hart, and Randy Vasquez trio, I think Randy Vasquez has the pedigree of the person who you would want in that fifth starter spot. He certainly seemed like he might be that person for the Yankees before they traded him. It's just a question of if he can work out those splits, because there's one half of the plate that you actually cannot let Randy Vasquez hit or pitch against, because otherwise they're going to take him yard. So do you guys feel like Randy Vasquez has any sort of future as a fifth starter, or is he going to be starting the year in El Paso?
Oh, I think Randy Vasquez could win the competition. I do. I would almost, if I had to like do a betting rank, I might make him the very, very, very mild favorite. I don't know. Just because of trajectory of where Waldron was and where Vasquez was at the end of the season. Hart gets the first chance to impress, but he's got the most work to do. But you said it. It's going to come down to, have they figured out whether it's the mix or whether it is a particular one of his 4 pitches that he needs to re-emphasize? Have they figured out a way for him to get lefties out? Because if not, eventually he needs to become a hard righty reliever and be somebody who's coming in, trying to ramp up his stuff and primarily face right-handed batters and do a Luke Gregerson kind of thing.
I thought Randy was even throwing more than that last year. I'm pulling up the Savant. Yeah, he was throwing 6 different pitches last year.
Well, maybe he needs to throw fewer or add a 7th. I don't know which way it is, but
all of them were over 10% too. Like, he threw a ton of different pitches. Like, focus, my guy.
Well, that feels like a very kitchen sink theory for a guy who didn't have a way to get left-handers out. Usually change-ups get left-handers out, two-seamers. We could go through the classic playbook here, but regardless, I mean, you said it. If he doesn't fix that, eventually he becomes a reliever in his career. It's just a matter of time. Or he's a bad starter, fifth starter on a bad team for a long time. Hart, total question mark. Who knows? Brito and Kolek need to be in AAA. And that's that. Now you get to the bullpen. We got a whole bunch of names for one spot. I'll tell you the thing I'm interested about this spring in the bullpen. A, is Robert Suarez going to get traded? B, what's up with Yuki? What do we got with Yuki? Year 2 Yuki. Anything there? Any growth? Any opportunity for him to surprise? If there was one player in the Padres bullpen that I could put a finger at and say, who could surprise in 2025? Yuki Matsui becoming a really effective option, leverage option for Mike Shildt would be huge for this team. Now, if we remember, the issue is the numbers seem to indicate that he had some success as the year went along. The reality was he went from nibbling and not throwing pitches anywhere near good hitters to then challenging hitters, at which point he started striking out bad hitters and giving up homers to average to good hitters. And he started giving up lots of homers, and then the Padres stopped using him at all because they were in a pennant chase and they couldn't have homer-allowing reliever out on the mound. Now, when Shildt did his, beginning of camp discussion, he just went to the walk rate, the strikeout rate at the end of the year, and he goes, yeah, he gave us some homers, but he was really pitching well. Well, you didn't trust him. You couldn't use him at the end of the year, so I can read through the BS stuff. I know what you actually thought of him. You didn't use him at the end of the year, but kid signed a 5-year deal. It's year 2. And the question is that a sunk cost, or is there actually some value that he could step up and become something we aren't thinking about now in terms of a guy that you count on?
Well, if they trade Robert Suarez, he becomes the team's highest paid reliever. So he needs to. Like he needs to get better and be better. Rafe, did you want to add anything to the Yuki?
Oh, you guys know how I feel about Yuki Matsui. I think Yuki Matsui is going to have a better year than Adrian Morahone. I said it. Yep. I said it on our last show. I'm doubling down on it. This is a guy who, let's remind people what we're getting in Yuki Matsui. First of all, he's a left-handed reliever who has 2 different approaches to each side of the platoon. When he's facing righties, he's throwing the fastball and he's throwing the splitter. When he's facing lefties, he's throwing the fastball and he's throwing the slider. And oh, by the way, his fastball has 3.1 inches of induced vertical break of rise, which for a guy who's only throwing 92 miles an hour is basically unheard of. This is like not quite Jeremiah Estrada levels, but it's only because Jeremiah Estrada throws the ball about 6 or 7 clicks harder than Yuki Matsui does. Yuki Matsui, for his velocity, is truly in a class of his own in terms of rise on his fastball. And so I think the combination of all of those things, including the, as we saw as the year went on, higher strikeouts per 9, I think that he has all of the ingredients to be an incredibly effective left-handed reliever for the Padres. Again, I don't think that A.J. Marhone's going to have a bad season at all. I just think Yuki Matsui really is going to be that good this year. So I am not worried in terms of allocated resources about the money that's going to Yuki Matsui this season, Craig.
And I'm sure you feel exactly the same way about Wandy Peralta, so we just don't even have to.
We don't even have to discuss it.
Move right on. Yeah, they're the same guy.
Right along. Whistle past the graveyard.
My guy in that category of like some guy I would bet on to surprise, and I really hope is on the team if he can live up to his promise, is my fellow giant man, Sean Reynolds, who is 6'8". Like, his sliders are off the charts. Like, guys can't hit him. They can't hit him. He's too scary. He throws the ball too hard. And if he is dealing in camp, I really hope he earns a spot on the roster and they're not tempted to, go with Rod Marinaccio or Hunter Wendelstad or whoever else is like
J.G. Wentworth. 187 cash now.
The Rule 5-1 Nunez, who you guys know I have a soft spot for Rule 5s. I had a soft spot for Kolek last year, but unless he's friggin' Pedro Martinez, it's tough to go through the season holding that guy on the roster, waiting for the trade deadline for you to make up an injury. I would love to see Sean Reynolds blowing major league pitchers ahead or whoa. I would love to see Sean Reynolds getting guys out in the 7th inning as a Padres.
Ask your doctor if you have a soft spot in your colic, because that could be a very serious condition.
Yes.
Okay. I think there's a lot of cool arms in the Padres bullpen, and whether it's Alec Jacob throwing sideways in 78 or Sean Reynolds being 6'8" and throwing pills, or J.G. Wentworth giving people cash affordably, with some pretty severe penalties if you don't repay. Tom Cosgrove. I don't need any more Tom Cosgrove. I really feel like he should become an El Paso legend. Austin Davis as well. No, thank you. But hey, I actually think El Paso's staff is looking kind of cheeky this year. Like
they're going to compete. They're going to compete this year down in Texas.
I think they might be okay. I do. And that's about it for me for right now. I mean, I still truly think they could theoretically sign a real hitter, not Yuli Gurriel. But a real hitter. Yuli Gurriel should not make this team under any circumstance. So there's that. If he does, then that's a bad thing because he took someone's place and that person would be good. Better than
Did you guys see that Luis Campusano is back to thinking a baseball bat is a baseball bat and not, in fact, a feudal katana to be wielded in front of your face in a protectionary stance?
The year of his career, it's probably the spring of his career, because the only guy that could give the Padres any possible upside at catcher is Luis Campusano. There's still the sliver of a chance that he turns into a good, productive offensive player who just has his bat carry his torturously poor glove forward. But anything other than him being a truly productive offensive player, he can't be a big leaguer because his defense is so bad, which gets you to Elias Diaz Kenny Grunt hit 250 with 12 homers for us. And boy, all right, we got what we could out of Elias Diaz. It feels like getting water out of a rock. Campusano, I don't know. I don't know if there's any juice in there at all, but I do know he can hit. It's to some level he can hit.
We've seen it. Like, we've seen him own major league pitching for stretches.
Brief.
Yeah. Brief stretches. But at the same time, like, his catching defense is so poor that if his bat is good enough, I'm not kidding. Like, there's a future where Luis Campusano plays first base for the Padres.
DH? He's the DH.
Or DH, exactly.
Both.
Go ahead, Chris.
No, I was just going to say, you can stomach Elias Diaz's good defense. You can almost maybe barely stomach Martin Maldonado's
good
defense.
I'm already throwing up.
If Campusano is raking and he can't play catcher, I can almost stomach. I said almost. I preface it.
Yeah. I also want to give a brief in memoriam for Brett Sullivan's nickname Luigi. Unfortunately, that name is taken on a different context. So we can't just be referring to Brett Sullivan as Luigi anymore. But we'll never forget his contributions to Team Italy in the 2023 World Baseball Classic. Rest in peace, our good nickname friend.
Hey, it's me, Brett Sullivan.
Yes.
That's where we are. I don't know if you guys. I got a hot tip, and you're gonna have to stay with me. But his nickname is Booty.
Sure.
Tell me, you guys haven't heard that promo. It runs on 97.3 like 30 times a month. But literally, Brett Sullivan's actual nickname is Booty. And Jesse in 2023, at one point that Brett was playing on a Sunday, told the story. And that clip just plays as one of those promos that runs going into the top of the hour. And literally he goes, his nickname, and you're going to have to stay with me, is Booty. So, sorry.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to Jesse Agler calling games again, boys. I can't wait for that. That is going to tickle my brain. Oh, my goodness. I cannot wait.
Yes.
Jesse Agler back on the mic. How good is that? Life is good.
When we talk this time next week, we will have 4 spring training games to overreact to.
Yes.
I can't wait.
All right. Let's put a pin on it right then, unless something exciting happens the rest of the week, in which case we'll be back. But otherwise, it's been a great spring training edition. We're rattling forward now. Team is in town. Padres Hot Tub is raring to go. For Chris and Raphie, I'm Craig. Take care. Go Padres.